We are muted, by the way.
Thank you, Tristan, for letting me know that I was muted. I was just muting myself a few seconds ago because of the video. I didn't want to pass anything through it, and I thought I have to think about it. I have to think about it. And 10 seconds later, I forgot about it. Goldfish memory, man. Okay, thank you, Tristan. All right, so I was saying, welcome everyone to this new episode of Protocol Watch, where we keep an eye on whatever is happening on standard developing organizations, as well as other areas where technology should be keeping an eye on that is not always doing so. As you may remember, if you have been following any of the previous episodes, and if not, I'll be proceeding to remind you. What we do here is to observe what is cooking, what is being presented, what is going to be issued from a number of standard developing organizations. In particular, we focus on the IETF, the Internet Engineering Task Force, as well as the ITU, the International Telecommunication Union, specifically on their telecommunication standardization sector, which is ITUT. And finally, on the Internet Corporation on Assigned Names and Numbers, also known as ICANN, which is basically the organization that takes care of unique identifiers out there, as well as far as we use the internet at the moment. There's other things that are happening in the space, some of which we're going to be discussing today in this episode. Essentially, what matters is to think that those organizations issue protocols, policy, technical codes, anything that is going to be eventually adopted by the tech sector, specifically those working in the internet. And you can imagine that whoever takes to have a grip on those organizations does control quite substantially what the internet can and cannot do, and in general, what technology could and could not do. That's a lot of control. That's a very dangerous position to be in certain ways, and we are aware of a number of attempts from certain organizations, certain governments, certain interests to manipulate and to bring those SDOs into their fold. And of course, what we do here is try to call that out by first, in this first series of episodes, trying to give you a general idea about what those organizations are, how do they function, and how to participate, because that's the other thing that we want to encourage, is for you to get some interest on these organizations and eventually go there and participate and, become part of the reason why certain things don't go on the wrong direction. Let's put it that way. Things that have been happening in the past week. So first of all, you may see that the background has changed from the previous episodes, and that's because we've been blessed with the support of someone who is going to be giving us a hand in the organization, and so we're going to be basically changing office. We still haven't even moved in, so everything is quite new again, starting from scratch. We should be moving in beginning of December, and we hope to be able to prepare the place for a much more stable podcast environment. Hopefully, that will also allow us to run much more regular episodes, not only on the weekends. We have an idea on being able to do this on a regular basis, sort of daily type of thing, and that would help a lot on expanding the knowledge of what do we do in the organization, but also what's going on in standard developing organizations, in SDOs, and what is happening in the internet governance environment, which will be the topic for today, which is going to ramp up in its importance from what we can surmise in the coming months, and I'll get into the details through the episode. In terms of what has been happening in the previous weeks, so there was IETF 121 happening in Dublin. The IO Foundation was there, as well as ICANN 81 in Istanbul, and the IO Foundation also was there. We haven't prepared any specific summary for those, and that's the kind of thing that we should be doing on a regular basis. So if we manage to have our daily podcast, that would allow us to be much more focused, or much more what's the English? I'm looking for a word. Extensive? No. Detailed could be, yeah. Detail on the observations that we have, because right now I need to dedicate the episode to internet governance, which is the topic for today. And so, if we don't do it on a regular basis, all of these things get lost. And that's part of the point as to why we want to do this, so it shouldn't get lost. It's always been as well a problem of logistics, because of where the previous studio was located, and we had only very specific days of quietness that allowed us to have a podcast with minimal quality. So we're hoping to be able to change that moving forward. And like I said, with a bit of luck, you will have much more content to look into. And maybe also that will solve a little bit of the problem of this issue that we have, that the content that we are trying to put out is not exactly the most riveting of things. It's not, we don't go for big news or for drama and so forth, although some of the stuff that we are trying to expose is quite dramatic. So it's not the kind of thing that you necessarily want to be listening on a daily basis. That's one of the inconveniences. However, that should not stop us from exposing it, because eventually, if there isn't enough opposition in certain areas and in certain things that are happening right now, the internet as we know it is going to change quite dramatically in the coming years, and that's not something that you should want. All right. What else could I think of? Well, WTSA 4, we did 24. We did an episode that was also uploaded. Have a look at it, because that one wasn't streamed. As in, it was streamed, but it went to another channel. That was my bad. And so I just took the copy of it and uploaded it onto the different streaming platforms that we use. So that would be Rumble, YouTube, X, and so forth. Actually, X, no, X, you can't upload one. I guess you can upload videos. Never tried. All of this is new for us. So we're trying to figure out things as we go. Anyway, I'm trying to figure out if there was anything else that I wanted to review. This will be the last regular episode for the year, with the exception of one middle of December, and that one will basically be kind of a summary recap of what has been happening during the year. And that's going to be, let me just double check. That's going to be 15th of December, if my memory serves. I don't have my calendar right now in this configuration for the podcast. Hopefully also something to sort out as well. All right, so let's jump into this topic called internet. Oh, by the way, I don't believe I've done any presentation. So my name is Jean. I'm from the IO Foundation, and we have Tristan on the digital production, as always, giving us a hand. Tristan?
Hey, hello.
Thanks for being there. Tristan is producing remotely, and at the moment we don't have any guests, something that we will probably also be able to change once we have the whole setup done, because this will be much more conducive to get guests on board and bring them into the office. And we also have actually a bit of an idea as to things that we could do with the space, because the space where we have the office is very big and very accommodating. I'll do a shout out once we have things pretty much set up. I will continue to stream from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. I think it is 3:12 at the moment. All right, let's go. Let me check, put my share screen, and let's begin with the episode. So this episode is going to be a little bit, I was thinking about how to define it, and I wouldn't say strange. It's just not going to be as structured in the same way that others have been in the past. I'm trying to look at the camera there. Since my screen's over there, maybe I just go a little bit down. Let me see if my view is a bit better. Yeah, because I don't want to be looking away from the camera all the time. Just I have to look at the screen. Again, details. We shall make this a little bit more better as we move. So in the past, when we've been looking into concepts, we've essentially had a look at the website of a specific organization. So we looked into the ITF, which include the IEB as well as the IRTF. So that's the Internet Engineer Task Force, the Internet Architecture Board, as well as the Internet Research Task Force. We also looked into ICANN. We looked into the ITU. We did look into, actually, I think we did 2 episodes on the ITU. We looked into APT. I need to redo that episode again because I forgot about the microphone. I was alone that day and I totally forgot. We have done WTSA and some other stuff. And pretty much in order to explore those organizations and what they do, we went through the structure of the website, which was typically, with the exception of ICANN wasn't a good website to do it that way. The other organizations allowed you to have a good comprehensive analysis of the organization. Whoops, I need to figure it out as well, how to not hit the table. It was a good way to have a comprehensive look at the organization, and so it gave us a structure on the episodes. I have also mentioned, by the way, in other episodes that we are working on structuring the content in a different way and make it much more structured. I don't want to repeat the word, but that's what it is. And so that's also coming down the pipeline. Now, in the case of the concept from today, which is internet governance, it's kind of a mixture of a lot of things, and it has a story that doesn't really allow to give a clear picture in a few sentences. You can summarize internet governance as all of the stuff that happens to govern the internet. Although the problem is that it really sounds like a circular definition. So what is internet governance? Is what you do to govern the internet. Okay, fine. So if you look at the definition on the Wikipedia, for instance, it's a system of laws, rules, policies, and practices. That's actually not it. That's not really it. Because it totally, for instance, disregards anything that has to do with the technology that sustains the internet. And that also gets governed. So the idea is that you have this huge mix of computers talking to each other. And there's people participating, there's companies participating, there's governments as well as internet service providers, everyone that is involved in one way or another, either as providing a service or providing the infrastructure or utilizing the internet. And there has to be a way for all of those people to get along and to agree upon certain things that matter in the realm of the internet. Now, that was pretty much what was called internet governance. So how do we harness this particular new monster that was raising back in the days called the internet, that a lot of people had no idea exactly what it was or how far it could go or the kind of things that you could do. And so all that some people figured out was at the very beginning, it was a technical challenge type of thing. So we have unique identifiers. We have the protocols that are connecting the different systems and that allow those systems to talk to each other. There was the how do we make it so that each one of those systems, each one of those devices have a unique identifier. So that was IPv4, which then became IPv6 later on. Then how do we optimize the traffic? So you will have a number of different protocols that came up across the years. And of course, that as it was progressing, there was an understanding that, hold on, there has to be some type of organization that will be overseeing the development of all of those technical standards. And so the ITF came to be, and then you had the original DARPANET project that once it became a bit of a global consumption service, I also had to move that what used to be a very concentrated management into a much more global management, because all of a sudden things were just getting way bigger. And so the ICANN, so the IANA got to exist, and they had to be this transition. We're going to go a little bit through the story of it. And then ICANN was formed, and ICANN got the IANA under them, blah, 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 blah. Now, as the technical element starts, I wouldn't say diluting, but sort of stabilizing, because that got solved in incremental steps. Then you have the element of the user's experience of the internet and what can and can they not do, as well as now all of a sudden governments are getting involved. And of course the UN got involved. And the question was, what do we do with all of this? And the concept started emanating of this internet governance idea, whereby the internet would be considered, it's not really a jurisdiction. I actually don't know how these people look at the internet aside from being a buzzword. Okay, so remember in TIOF we actually don't like buzzwords too much, and when it comes to internet governance, it is a fair descriptor of something that is required. It is, however, not properly defining what really is happening. And what really is happening is that there is a bunch of unelected people who are making decisions as to how the internet is being governed. That's the easiest way to define it. Of course, with a lot of caveats and with a lot of gray areas in that definition. Is just think about the fact that you have people who have not necessarily been elected by citizens anywhere in the world, making decisions as to how certain things may or may not happen at a technical level and at the policy level on the internet. And the only way that works is if those organizations who are issuing both the technical side and the policy side do allow for mechanisms of participation. And that is true in some of them, not all of them. And there is a tendency so that the not ones grow on top of the yes ones. That's one of the problems that we need to keep an eye on when it comes to internet governance. This should not become a model whereby a centralized subset of organizations get to decide how things work and no one gets to say anything about it. Although no one that is not them. So internet governance could be a little bit explained as to think about all the layers that are required for the internet to function at the technical level as well as at the policy level. So policy level is essentially what can and cannot be done, or what would be allowed or not allowed in terms of content, in terms of information, in terms of services, etc., etc. As well as what would be, for instance, so let's say, for instance, that you would want to stop a network of bots, which are depending on one specific domain name to function. Given certain policy on ICANN, you would be able to try to stop that proliferation and take down the domain, because it may fall in one specific category of what's called DNS abuse. And so all of those policies are basically how all of those things are governed. So you have the first layer is going to be technological, and the second layer is essentially policy making. All of those, all the whole stack, it's called internet governance. Now, there is a number of events. One of them is coming up in sort of the main one at the moment. It's coming up in December. We'll be discussing about that one too, which is called the Internet Governance Forum. And there is a current model for what should be the way to do that governance that is called multi-stakeholder. Multi-stakeholderism is essentially the idea that you put together every single participant on one specific topic, in this case, internet governance, and you allow them to sit on the table and discuss and have their own opinions, and not having any specific opinion weighting more than others. That has pros and that has cons. And by the way, multi-stakeholderism is a coin that I believe was termed by the WEF. So careful with that. It's a crafty word. It's a smart word, because instead of being shareholders, the idea is that in a company you have shareholders that have vested interest in a private company through their shares, and therefore they want to have a return over investment based on their shares, and they have different amount of influence in the company based on the shares that they have. That would be for a public company, but as well for a private one, actually. Depends if whether it is traded publicly or not. You still have shares for the ownership. And in the case of a topic that is not specifically a company, it's a much more ethereal thing, such as an idea or a theme. The people who are involved into the idea or that particular implementation, that particular process, whatever it is, they have a stake. They will either influence or receive consequences from that particular process. And so someone came up with the idea, with the concept of stakeholder. You hold a stake in that particular process, let's say. The concept itself is not bad. It's just the way it's been used in the past that sort of raises red flags. It seems to be the way it's used at the moment. It seems to be a very good bypass for actual. Let me rephrase that. So on the normal circumstances, everyone having a seat on the table, who will complain about that? I see no problem. Okay. The issue is depending on what is it that you are bringing those people for on the table. What is exactly, because sitting people on the table is easy. You just invite them, just sit down there. What is the agenda that is being pursued, and how does that format allow for certain things to be manipulated? That's to me the conversation. And so there are organizations that have very well functioned under the multi-stakeholder environment, and I would say ICANN has done a very good job on it. All systems have problems. Okay, so ICANN is not perfect. However, in what it is, or when it comes to getting participation from people who are not part of the organization, considering the stakes that the organization has on the table, yes, ICANN definitely is to be used as a model that can be improved, but it's still a very good baseline model. There's other organizations that have different models that also allow for very good participation, and you somehow could actually argue that they are multi-stakeholder. The thing is that, so for instance, the IETF. The IETF is a very simple organization to participate. You don't need any fees to be participating in IETF. You only need to pay if you are going to the meetings, and it's basically because they need to run the meetings, and that has a cost. So basically people are participating to cover those costs. Now, no one is stopped from participating in IETF. The only thing is, because the IETF is very technical in nature, you will not see that many lawyers looking into policy, because that's not what's discussed in the IETF. So it is a multi-stakeholder model. It's just not all the stakeholders are there. You could argue that all the stakeholders from the outputs or the type of outputs that the IETF generates are there. So in that regard, there's not much criticism to be had on the IETF, because if a lawyer wanted to just sit down in one of the sessions and even try to participate in, I don't know, some of the DetNet deterministic networking conversation, more than welcome. I haven't heard about anyone being stopped from participating, and that's in fact quite anathema with the IETF's behavior. So no. Very different story will be for the ITU, for instance. So the ITUT is a membership environment where the member states have way more weight than anybody else. The member states are the default members of the ITU because the ITU is a UN agency. And so you can, as an organization, you can pay your way in as what's called sector members. That's about $30,000, over $30,000 a year. I think it was 32,000 Swiss francs, which translates into a shit ton of money on USDs. And your capacity in the organization is still dampened versus member states. So for instance, the ITUT has 4-year cycles called study periods. In between those, so at the end of each of one of those study cycles, at the end of each of one of the study cycles are for study groups. What would be the cycle for? I don't know that they have a name actually. Okay, so either way, the ITUT, so the ITU in general does work on cycles of 4, and at the end of each one of the cycles there is what's called a plenipotentiary, a PP. And in the PP, they will be discussing what's going to be happening in the next study cycle, another 4 years. In between, there is this thing called the ITU Council, which steers, keeps an eye and makes sure that whatever has been decided in the previous PP is actually being implemented properly all the way to the next one. And the only ones who can vote there are member states. So any decision from a governance perspective for the ITU only comes from member states. Sector members can attend, I believe, for the PP. They can't really say much. And when it comes to WTSA, for instance, which is the assembly that establishes the work that will be made by the study groups under ITUT for the next study cycle, also for years. Sector members do have a bit of a say, just not that much, not doing the plenaries, for instance. You would still be allowed to take the microphone if you want to, it's just not very well regarded. And so you can imagine that is not what you would consider a multi-stakeholder environment, not at all. That's much more what's called a multilateral environment. That's basically governments talking to each other. And unless you have made your homework and made sure that in your own country, you have elected politicians that know what they're doing when it comes to internet governance and technology in general, which is not always the case. You see some envoys and some governments appointing people specifically for some technology areas, which is great. That's a good development. It's just not the general norm at the moment. There's still more work to be done on that. And you can imagine that even if one specific country has one very protective position against certain things from happening on the internet, so for instance, re-architecting it or removing end-to-end encryption or any other bad idea that is being floating around, it would still be just one single government against 150 or 180 more. Can't remember how many the ITUT has now. And you would need alliances and negotiations and so forth. So it's not a straightforward process, and it's not the same at all as ICANN or the IETF. So the reason why I'm saying all of this is because all of the internet is only made possible because of technology. Point. That's it. That's it. Period. There's no more else to discuss. No technology, there's no internet. I know that a lot of people love to talk about the high level of internet governance, and that's pretty much what certain people only talk about. That to me goes as a secondary step until you have solved the primary step, which is specifically the technical one. So if there isn't an actual multi-stakeholder participation in every single organization that has a say when it comes to the technology involved into the building maintenance of the internet, we already have a problem there. Now, on top of all of that, you have a number of organizations, and this is very, very much UN-centric at the moment, that have been looking into how to govern the internet and therefore the concept of internet governance. I will say that in my current perception of the situation, a lot of the people who want to talk about internet governance don't necessarily know about the technology, and they wouldn't know how to govern the technology, and as a result rather prefer to govern the policy and what can and cannot be done with the technology. And so when you cannot go all the way down to the technical level, it's just easier to just have very generic intentions and just work on those. I'm not so warm about that, because there's a lot of attempts to twist that particular how should I call it, position to some nefarious outcomes. Now, let's have a look very quickly at the Wikipedia page. By the way, Wikipedia, I really hope you're going to be getting out of your dark hole. I was double checking the page on internet governance, and it's okay. It's missing a few stuff, but it's still okay. And I wouldn't say that all the elements that are here are correct. So for instance, governance is not just these ones. There's more organizations doing the governance, but okay. And those are general concepts. I mean, I would really not like the activist part of it, because I don't think activism is a word that has any virtue whatsoever nowadays. Absolutely desecrated. So if I look at the what they define as the internet governance, they say contested by different groups. Yeah, obviously. And the general the definition that they came up with at the World Summit of the Information Society, we're going to get into that, WISIS, would be that the internet governance is the development and application by governments, the private sector, and civil society in their respective roles of shared principles, norms, rules, decision-making procedures, and programs that shape the evolution and use of the internet. All right, let's have a look at this definition very quickly. The first thing is the first stakeholder, quote unquote, that they put there is governments. That's it. That should already give you an idea as to where this is going. Private sector is the second one, and civil society is the third one. It is not necessarily clear what they mean by civil society, although typically what it means is NGOs and private citizens. Now, where's the technical community here? Nowhere to be seen. That's a failure of the definition to begin with. It would be the the same as expecting to have a technical code or governance code for how cities expand and live and function, and not include architects or masons. Why? It makes no sense to me. Also, they say very directly that is shared principles, norms, rules, decision-making procedures, and programs. Where's the technology? I'm sorry, I'm missing here half of the stack for this supposed internet governance. Anyway, as you can see here a little bit down, they say that this Professor Yochai Benkler said something about having 3 layers, so physical infrastructure, code or logical layer, as in content layer. It's all right. There's been different definitions, and in the end, there was, let's see if I can find internet governance stack. There was an image somewhere. I think it was, see if I, it's not here. Oh, the global public goods, that's another story as well. Let me see if I can find this on Google. Yep. There's one specific image that I could use as a reference. I'm not finding it here. Let's check this one actually. I'm curious. What is it? Well, the image seems to be a little bit, I don't think that I can put it on a new tab. See? Yeah, I don't think it's gonna get way much better from a resolution perspective. So you can see here that there is a number of layers, and they have put cybersecurity and legal at the same height, plus development, economic, social, cultural, human rights on top of it. I would not agree at all with this way of stacking it. At all. But then again, everyone has an agenda, so they make their own diagrams according to that. Okay. So I can't find the one that I wanted to show. I don't think we're gonna have it here. Stack. So this is one that I've seen before, but it's not the one. It's not here. Come here. Come on, get in. There you go. So this is the Trust over IP Foundation. That's something that's very different. We might be doing an episode on them one day. I don't want to spend much more time looking into this. I really wanted to see if I could find that image, because it was so far the one that I found the most comprehensive. That's a pretty image. Can't find it. Okay, too bad. All right. Anyway, so back to this. I would recommend, if you want to have a look a bit at the history of the whole thing, you know, the Wikipedia page is fine. So it tells you from ARPANET, which was it was a project from DARPA, and how it moved into the some of the research on the ITF and some of that stuff as well on ICANN, and how the RIRs got to be yada yada yada, how John Poster's death did trigger IANA becoming part of ICANN, etc. And the IANA stewardship, which was during the what was this? The IANA stewardship, that would be, I believe, when the US Department of Commerce got rid of IANA, and it was integrated into, I think I actually found it over here, stewardship. There you go, the stewardship transition. But it's also mentioned somewhere else. There you go. So when ICANN got the management of the whole thing, was called the IANA stewardship transition. And one of the good things is that really, as they mentioned here, no one really felt anything online, which is a testament on how properly or effectively that was done. Okay. So the reason why I'm trying to mention all of this is because there was a number of people who eventually decided, oh, this thing about the internet, wow, important. Some thought it could be a good opportunity to get things done properly and maybe take care of the internet and make sure that it remains open and so forth. And some others thought, fantastic way to bypass the will of the people in certain countries and just find a way to have one single internet, one single governance for the internet. And some people got to task. And there's been a number of attempts to unify and to consolidate certain elements of the internet. And it's, again, something that people should know about, and you should be keeping an eye on as to how those attempts are evolving across time. Now, very long story short, the UN decided to go for this thing called the WISES. So basically, what I'm going to be doing now is leading to building towards the event that is happening next month. So what took us there? And so I'm just going to go and type WISES over here. Actually, I think I had it here. The World Summit on the Information Society. So basically, the UN decided, hey, this thing about the internet is very important. We should do something about it. This information society, wow. It's shaping how things are going, and we should definitely have a say over there. And very likely, because governments like to be governments, they decided, we should be the ones directing this. And fair enough, it wasn't just one government. It's still governments. And it does not allow for much maneuver from other stakeholders. And so, as you can see there was basically two meetings for this WISES thing. The first one, 2003 in Geneva, and the following one, 2005 in Tunis. And out of this, a number of conclusions, a number of recommendations were issued. There's a whole document that you can go through, and maybe we'll do another episode. This is another kind of stuff that would love to do on the regular daily episodes. Take one of the the WISES proceedings, go through them and see exactly what they were supposed to be fostering. One of the conclusions, one of the recommendations of WISES was the Internet Governance Forum. And the Internet Governance Forum is, because it still is, at least for a couple of years, was a mandate that was given to build a multi-stakeholder environment that would allow for people to discuss internet governance. Now, the funny part is discuss would be the keyword there. There isn't a specific mechanism that I'm aware of that would allow any of the conclusions or any of the comments that are generated by any of the IGF convenings to have any at all effect on how the internet is governed. I don't know of any of it. Now, the IGF was given a mandate for a number of years. So this was 2005. So they were given a mandate for 10 years, if I'm not wrong, and then another 10 years that were renewed. And for YSIS plus 20, which is the YSIS, so YSIS plus 10 happened 10 years later, and YSIS plus 20 is going to happen 20 years later. So basically 2025. And the AGF basically has a mandate that is parallel to that. So they still have 2 years more, so 2024 and 2025. It's a lot of story there that I need to unpack. So the IGF community is essentially a disastrous website to begin with. I really don't know why these guys are not changing the website after so many years. It's bad. Every single year, the IGF convenes somewhere in the world for one yearly big forum, the Internet Governance Forum. In there, they choose a topic, and there is a number of sessions, no workshops that I know of. And people just go there and discuss and talk and talk and talk. So it's a big machine for awareness. It just doesn't act as a real conduct for change of any level. Again, not that I'm aware of. I would love to be corrected. I've been participating in IGF since 2018, and I have never seen anything really happening. In fact, what I see is every single year the same topic gets discussed. The same people go to the same to the IGF and keep talking about the same things. They just tweak a little bit of there's a new buzzword, like AI. My gosh, AI for a couple of years, everything was AI. Blah 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 blah. You don't really necessarily see any change actually being effectively implemented. So it is good to have those conversations. Don't get me wrong. It's just if you're only talking, don't expect to have any change. Someone's going to have to bring this information and move it to the places where the decisions are made. And yeah, their proceedings and their reports and stuff, you don't really see much happening at an effective level. Now, the whole IGF structure works at different levels. So you have the IGF, the Internet Governance Forum yearly meeting, the yearly forum, that, like I said, happens every single year somewhere around the world, typically in Q4. It's November, December, that's how it moves. And you also have them at the region level. So in Asia Pacific, for instance, we have the Asia Pacific Regional IGF, APR IGF. And you also have them at national level. And so you would have the Spain IGF or the Russia IGF or the US IGF, Americas, blah, blah, blah. And each of one of those are organized somehow separately. And they may treat topics that are a bit more focused on that particular region or that particular country. You know, it makes a lot of sense to have local conversations about local problems that you may have through the use of the internet and how you would want to govern that. That's not a crazy idea. Now the thing is, only a bunch of people go to the actual annual forum because you need to have money to get there. It's not as if they sponsor anything. and it's a week of meetings. Typically, not cheap cities, because it's you require some infrastructure for those things to happen, and so you need to have a good airport, and you have to have some good security. So when they go to places such as, when was it, Addis, Ethiopia, in 2022, as you can see on the screen, well, they're actually having a civil war over there. At least back in 2022, I haven't checked what's the situation. I'm not updated about that. And they word was that they had conversations with the rebels to make sure that the city would be not attacked during the IGF, etc. So there is a number of requirements that make sense to avoid having any issues. However, not everyone can afford to go over there. It's accommodation, is the cost that you have, food and so forth, and the flights, blah 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 blah. So yes, you can participate online as well. Everybody knows that online participation is not the same. You don't get to know people face to face. You don't get to network with them. You don't get to befriend them. You don't get to make enemies sometimes, because not everyone is nice. And I'll also say that the IGF online participation model is absolutely terrible. We'll see this year, because I will have to participate online. I didn't manage to go to secure a spot for traveling or anything, and I can at least remember, I think it was 2020. So 2018 was Paris, I was there. 2019 was Berlin, I was there. 2020, can't remember if that one was pushed. It was supposed to be Poland, and of course the pandemic hit, and that didn't happen. I can't remember if it was pushed or they made it all fully online. Once they reopened, they did Poland again. What I remember very, very distinctively was in one of those years trying to figure out where to find the bloody link for each of one of the sessions, and it was just a disaster. It was really, really bad. And I had the same experience in 2020 for Ethiopia. I decided to also not go. The UX for the website and how to find the sessions, terrible. And I don't expect that they have changed anything for the coming. I was last year I was in Kyoto, and I don't expect that anything has changed for Riyadh. This 2024 is happening in Saudi Arabia, which matters, by the way. And the reason why the AGF is still something that we want to keep, regardless of the criticisms that I just mentioned, is because of what comes down the pipeline. The UN has been moving towards something called the Global Digital Compact. I will admit that I haven't looked enough for comfort on the topic, although we know that the Pact for the Future has been already approved in the previous United Nations General Assembly, UNGA 94, 74, can't remember. And it's been famously rejected by certain people, specifically Javier Milei, which I think was a good move. I don't think the current direction of the UN is appropriate. And specifically, what they are trying to attend with the GDC is quite concerning. So the GDC is basically trying to bring everything that has to do with technology on the one single spot, essentially, on the UN. And that would mean that the model that has been in the current documents for the GDC is what's called a trilateral model. And that trilateral model includes government, corporations, and civil society. And that should remind you of something that we were discussing before. Let me scroll up again. There you go. Okay, so governments, private sector, and civil society. No mention of the technical community, which is argued to be absorbed in between the private sector and civil society. And I call absolute bullshit on that. I do not agree. And I don't think it's a good idea to set aside the community that is basically making the internet function. That's it. You don't have technical community, there's no internet. And we go back to the same argument. Because these people cannot engage at a technical level with technologies, they just decide the ways to set them aside and move everything at a higher level conceptual type of management, which is governance, basically policies. Policies is just general ideas as to why would I want this or that to happen. I got no idea how to implement it, but this is what I want to happen. Just figure it out. And then the technologies is just left alone figuring why, okay, what do I do with this now? Of course, I'm oversimplifying the whole thing. What I'm saying is people with no technical capacity should not have a say in what technology can and cannot do. They can provide guidance, they can provide the principles that the technology must follow, and that's totally fair. Now, not allowing people to have a spot on the table because you don't know how to engage with them, and what they do is, again, as ridiculous as having urban code that is going to be decided only by the politicians and the companies and people on the streets for as long as they have an actual representation, because civil society does not necessarily represent everyone, that to begin with, and ignoring architects and masons, the people who will actually do the actual building, the actual act of construction. That would make no sense whatsoever. Or having an international congregation on. So imagine, for as much as I don't like the WHO, but imagine having an organization that would have no doctors there or no nurses. How? What? How could that play out? It makes no sense whatsoever. And so the GDC not having the technical community totally involved, only marginally and on the sides, it's not a good idea. And if you're going to be concentrating things directly into the GDC, then the question becomes, why do you need the IGF to begin with? That starts ringing, it raises red flags as to, is it the intention of the whole thing to get rid of the multi-stakeholder model and shift it towards a trilateral model as described there? Yeah, it very much looks like it. That's right now. There's no counter argument to that concern, because the facts are basically speaking for themselves. And so my personal observation as to what has been happening with the IGF is that the last 2 years of the IGF mandate were assigned to quite bad locations. Let me expand on that. So the IGF has historically faced quite a number of difficulties to find a host country. You would think, oh, it's an international organization, and from the UN, and they're receiving a lot of people, so it's good business for the receiving host country. Not necessarily, because there's a number of conditions that the host country needs to put into place. And there's been years where the IGF was very, very short in time to figure out where to go. And we know of those difficulties. Now, it would appear, I am not privy of all of this, so in detail, these are conversations that I've had with people in the environment. And so take everything that I'm saying here with a little bit of with a couple of grains of salt. However, they seem to be corroborated by different sources and different conversations. The last 2 years would have allegedly be negotiated and agreed upon before the conflict in Ukraine started. And these two places, the last 2 years, would have been Saudi Arabia for 2024 and Russia for 2025. back last year during IGF Kyoto, there was a huge backlash by civil society and other stakeholders in IGF to push for Saudi Arabia to be removed from 2024 and instead find some alternative host. That didn't pan out. There was a lot of what's the English? Turmoil and discontent. And to a certain degree, I mean, you can look at it from both sides. You can look at it from the current status of Saudi Arabia is not conducive for human rights, etc., and that's the position of the traditional human rights organizations, and therefore, it shouldn't be a place where you go and discuss all of this. And the counter argument is, well, precisely because they are not having these kind of conversations, that is, the IGF is the perfect reason or the perfect motive to go and have those conversations on site. I'm personally in between. Basically, because I don't know enough about Saudi Arabia, as in I know everything by reputation, but I've never been there. So I want to be cautious about my opinion on the place. I did think, however, well, if they are wanting to have conversations about internet governance, well, they are apparently interested in it. So maybe we should go and talk to them and see what happens, see exactly how this pans out. I don't think that you would want to isolate specific countries that may have expressed the interest on participating, and then of course you want to make sure that that they don't have a specific agenda. You don't want them to become. All of those are logical concerns that you need to address. Now, I didn't see that there was any specific barrier for Saudi Arabia to be the host. Now, a very different story was with Russia, because that is extremely polarizing at way more levels than just a human rights one. And it was my impression that those two locations had been allowed or encouraged or not set aside, let's put it that way, in favor of the GDC. My impression, and that of some other people, is that there was an intention for the IGF to die a quiet death by generating context that would paint the IGF as a not proper organization or proper procedure or proper environment, not the right forum, and instead pursue going through the GDC. And bit of a conspiracy theory, but it's just not it's not unrealistic. That's totally doable. Anyway, during ICANN 81, we got to learn that IGF 2025 will be in Norway. So the issue with Russia has been averted, and that could mean something. And so pause that for a moment, that change, which is interesting. It could be that just Russia was not logistically possible anymore because of visas and so forth. Okay, that's another thing that these organizations need to pay attention to. You got people coming from all over the world. Not everyone can have a visa on arrival. And if you want to foster a good multi-stakeholder, multi-participatory environment, you need to make sure that as many people as possible can come. So Russia may have been in could have been a much more tough spot when it comes to issuing visas for people to go there, for obvious concerns. And so Norway, okay, so happens to be the alternative, and apparently that has been already announced and made public. By the way, please, can you just go to places that are not cold? Seriously, if there's a renewal of the mandate, can you please go to places that are warm in November, December? It's Paris, Berlin, Poland. I mean, come on. It's always cold. Anyway, so let's put that aside for a moment. in Kigali, ICANN 80, I can put together these high-level panel conversations. I think it was day 0. And what happened there was quite interesting. That was June, July. And it was on the lead up to the Summit for the Future. Summit of the Future, Summit for the Future. Let me see what's the article there. Summit for the Future. Of the Future. Of the Future. Okay. I'll leave that there for later. And there was a lot of discontent about what were the different drafts that were issued by the special envoy for the GDC, that was basically pointing out that all of this thing about the trilateral model, etc., etc. And it would have appeared at that point that organizations that work in a multi-stakeholder model or that want to defend a multi-stakeholder model started getting active in terms of promoting it and make people think about that model. So I can put together that high-level panel day. And it was interesting how the technical community actually took a stand. There was one single session only about, guys, we're here. There's no reason for to be set aside, which I think is something that was called for. And in fact, it should have been done, if ever possible, earlier than that. And the technical community has been complaining about this for the longest time. It wasn't just in that particular point. I'm only thinking that there could have been other actions to be taken. In retrospect, that might not be the easiest thing to do for a number of reasons, but still, this only goes to say how the technical community requires a bit more of organization to not be kicked to the side in this kind of environments. Then there was a number of country delegations that made statements. I can remember at least 3 of them, but there were many more, about the importance of maintaining a multi-stakeholder method of governance, and so forth and so forth. That gave me the impression that, there was also this civil society organization that supports the IGF. I can't remember the name right now. That was going absolutely every single session that I can remember. I was attending that one online, but they were in pretty much all the sessions that I was attending. They had 5 or 10 minutes there, basically asking people, join the organization, become a member, because we need to push for the multi-stakeholder model, etc., etc. When I did a bit of research on that organization, I found that from the information that you get on the website, they seem to have gone into a dormant hiatus for a couple of years. And I found that to be interesting. And it seems to have been just reactivated as a result of what was happening with the GDC. I want to make a small pause here. Tristan, can you confirm if there's any background noise coming in?
No background noise.
Okay, because I can hear something here, and I'm not sure if it's just me or if it's going through the mic. All right, thank you. And all right, so as I was saying, there was this huge movement, and there's been a lot of complaints and so forth. And I can imagine that there's going to be something similar happening as well in Riyadh, trying to oppose being absorbed in full by the GDC. However, do keep in mind that both the GDC and the IGF are under the UN, and whoever is pulling the strings in the UN will do whatever they want, and they will keep both or shut one as they see fit. So I wouldn't take any of this for granted. I would not assume that this will continue as it is. It feels to me that we're going to have a bit of a shift on how things are in the internet governance environment in the coming years, and I do believe that you should be keeping an eye on this, at least be minimally informed, and should there be anything to do, to be quick on reacting, because a lot of that stuff is just happening in somebody else's office, and they're making a lot of decisions on our behalf. Again, not something that you would want to happen. All right, so the YCs, like I said, happened almost 20 years now. YCs plus 10 did happen here. So that was in Geneva, because it was 2014. And then 2020 will come up. I don't believe that there's any specific location that has been announced for this. The high-level event was in May in 2024, but there will be okay, it's going to be Geneva again. High-level event 2025 is scheduled for, okay. So that's going to be July. Hopefully, this will be somewhere around one of the study groups for ITUT, and I can kill two birds with one stone. Or be Chuck Norris and kill two stones with one bird. All right, so what's going to happen next month? Next month, we're going to have this IGF in Riyadh, in Saudi Arabia. And it's going to be between the 15th to the 19th of December. You can see there's a visa application and so forth, and the registration. I believe I'm already registered. This website, I never checked the website before. Actually, I didn't even know that they had a website on the south. Let's see what they have. Post the logo, schedule. Oh, come on, they still haven't even put the schedule at all. Guys, we are just 3 weeks away. Do we have here anything on the sessions? Yeah, possibly, yes. So we're going to have high-level sessions, main workshops, open forums, launches and awards, lightning talks, network sessions, dynamic coalition sessions, all these fancy words, national initiatives or national and regional initiative sessions, a prevent. By the way, there is a calendar somewhere around here in the general IGF website where you can see IGF related events, and you can see them on the calendar. So for instance, look, Tuesday, this is what, November. There was 1, 2, 3, 4 different national IGFs, UK, Armenia, Arab IGF, Youth Latin America, I guess that is. And okay, LACSIF was happening for the whole week. I'm assuming this is Latin America. LAC IGF. Jesus Christ, this website. Okay, bye. And so, yeah, if you want to have a look at it, it gives you a general idea. The thing is, you can't really subscribe to any of these. And we will be, the Vietnam is happening now. All right. We will be passing all of this to our own Habitat calendars. So we are developing a Habitat calendar for the ATF, another one for the ICANN, another one for the ITU, and there will be one for the IGF. So you'll be able to look at all of this in case you just want to subscribe, and it will be a public calendar, and you can have a general idea as to what's going on. There was one in Cambodia, interesting, Vietnam, and then Canada will happen there. The MAG, I'll get into the MAG now. Spain IGF 3 days. And then, Jesus, how do I navigate here, guys? Gosh, November here. Lebanon, Belarus, Italy, right before the actual IGF that starts on the 15th to 19th. Okay. Belarus. Isn't that funny? Okay, so in terms of sessions, let's see if we have any information on the high-level sessions. While it's loading, I'm just going to check very quickly my phone because I gotta... Okay. Navigating the misinformation maze, strategic cooperation for a trusted digital future. All of these buzzwords, seriously. Where does this go? I never understood. Extending digital identity verification to protect internet transactions. You may want to keep an eye on this because this is going to be digital IDs. Exploring transparency and explanation on explainability in AI. An ethical imperative. Okay, can anyone from that session tell me which ethics? Whose ethics? Been asking this since 2018. I can't hear anyone give me an answer. From Summit of the Future to YSIS plus 20, this is going to be very interesting to pay attention. Discussions will emphasize the need for a multi-stakeholder approach. Here you go, and technical experts. Yes, thank you. One cool thing from the technical community is they started getting involved in the IGF processes with a bit more of intensity since last year. The ITF did send some of their people, and one of the IRTF groups, research groups, did get, in fact, a small lightning session, and there was an information-only session on the IEB and how the ITF works and so forth, and that was really cool. I can't remember, there was something about ICANN as well. That escapes me at the moment. Very likely, yes. And that was a very good first step, and I hope that they continue with that because they need to hammer with the importance of the technical community in internet governance. Protecting children's rights in the digital world. Of course you need to. Of course you need to keep the children somewhere. Listen, guys, no one in their right minds will have any issue with protecting kids. Fucking protect them at any cost. Now, every time that you hear children's rights in this kind of environments, specifically in technology, take it with a grain of salt, because what you need to evaluate is exactly what's going to be the outcome of the proposal. There's been a lot of... So CSAM is children's sexual abuse material. It's a big topic in technology, and of course you would want to make sure that fucking perverts are not roaming around, and they don't target innocent children, and specifically children don't know better. So it's not a bad thing at all that you are paying attention to how to protect them. That is not the issue. The issue is when that's used as an argument to, for instance, take down end-to-end encryption, because predators are using those encryption technologies to facilitate their predatory behavior, and as a result, kids are exposed and they are in danger. that would be basically ending privacy for people. Thank you for the excuse. Thanks, but no thanks. So there has to be other methods, and in fact, there are other solutions that can be discussed. It's an emotionally charged argument to try to get rid of protections that people have in general. It's not only about protecting the children, it's also about protecting the adults, all of them. And you can't be putting one at a higher level in the balance when we're talking about privacy in communications. It's crazy that conversation is being even being had, and it's not as if we don't have. So, for instance, one of the excuses to be able to do content analysis is CSAM. And yeah, I get it that you would want to be able to detect if someone is sharing pictures of nude pictures of children performing sexual activities, most of the time being raped. Sure, you want to be able to stop that. Again, that should not give you an excuse to have a full blanket option on analyzing everybody's content as it transits between two devices. The nefarious consequences of that particular thing and how that can be abused to basically become a bloody authoritarian on the internet is way too high. So there has to be found a balance, and we need to keep going on with what technologies would be the adequate for what. And it is my impression, my personal impression is that the internet is going to become layered in terms of access of age. That to begin with, I don't think we're gonna avoid having some type of digital ID online. And it is my impression that we will be stratifying access based on that age, but also likely based on ability. So think about driving. The internet is essentially a huge highway of information and communication. And just as in any regular transport highway, you get people handling different type of vehicles. Children cannot drive. And we all understand why, because they cannot evaluate the consequences and the needs for safe driving in a road. You say, for instance, I'm gonna use the example of Spain, which is the one that I know the better. You reach 14 years old, you can get small scooter up to 49 cc's to drive around. You still need a license though, so not all 14 years old can get a scooter and drive around. You have to demonstrate that you know how to behave on the road, and that you will not become either a danger for others, but also not a danger to yourself, and that you will know also how to avoid dangers. In a sense that you know how to behave on the road. You grow older and you now want a car. Well, you still need to pass another exam, and you need to demonstrate to everyone, or to at least an evaluation process, that you can get the car and you are not going to be a nuisance or a danger for others, and even for yourself neither. And it's the same. I want now to work as a transporter, truck driver, then I get another license. And even in the truck driver industry, you have different licenses depending on the type of products that you are transporting. And all of those require that you demonstrate your knowledge and your mastering as much as possible of those particular topics, so that you become a productive driver in the highway. This is going to be something very similar in the internet. I don't see how this is not going that way. And this is probably also going to be something that happens with technology, whereby some people will have access to live data in order to develop, and others that have not passed either a certification or have demonstrated enough knowledge to be able to tinker and to be able to learn fine in your own sandbox, but not something that you can put into production. I can imagine things are going to go in that direction, and it's not necessarily a bad direction for as long as we pay attention, to not abuse of that, about the negative side effects of it, and so forth. Now, when it comes to children protection, is probably going to be going on that direction too. So children of a certain age will not either be capturable by recording devices or whatever it is. And so we will very likely establish how's English? Steps is not the word I'm looking for. It's not procedures neither. I'm blanking. Let's call it methods. Methods of preemptive protection that we'll have to agree upon, of course. And that's when standards come in, by the way. So if the standard is improperly implemented or designed, the protection will not function. Hence the importance for you, please stop participating in those environments, because all of these things are going to happen. And we may, for instance, be more proactive in the kind of material that can be generated, et cetera, et cetera. And I can imagine we're going to have some kind of provenance log for digital assets, and we might stop not allowing distribution of something that does not come with an actual certified provenance log. So, for instance, I'm just running my brains now. Let's say, for instance, you would have an old camcorder, an old recorder that does not comply with that particular new specification. It will not be able to generate an actual provenance log, and that provenance log would allow that whatever you are recording is not being distributed through the internet. Let's assume. The problem that you could have with that is you could actually rig how valid provenance logs in digital assets, so that you censor people from sending information from one point to another. So again, it depends on the implementation. It depends on what's the governance of all of those things. And there's going to be solutions that we want to look into, and we need to make sure that the governance does not support either authoritarian or controlling type of attitudes that would stop the internet from being the fantastic source of knowledge and expansion that it is at the moment. So there is no easy solutions, and I think it was Thomas Sowell that used to say there are no such thing as solutions, only how is it? No such thing as solution. I think it's not commitments. Why am I blanking so much today? Thomas Sowell. No solutions. Trade-offs. There are no solutions, there are only trade-offs. And this is quite a realistic quote, because if you start looking at everything being an object, everything being features, and everything being basically different measurements of those features, you realize that a specific principle or a specific direction is essentially scaling up or scaling down. So scaling down or scaling up some features on the objects that you are manipulating. It's difficult for me to I don't have a formed a full shape of how to express this. But essentially, since everything can be algorithmically looked upon, when you decide to go and optimize for one specific direction, basically you are scaling up for that direction and scaling down for other features. So for instance, we decide that killing people is bad, and you would not have tolerance for people who go around stabbing others. That would be a trigger. And so you establish a law, which is basically code. And what you would do is you would have you are scaling up the concern for that particular type of attack. And that was probably a bad example. I wasn't prepared for this. Okay, I'll get back to this. I'll have a specific episode just on the concept of algorithmic view of the world. But essentially, Sowell was very, very right on there are no solutions, there are only trade-offs. You're going to have to be negotiating all of these things. And when it comes to internet governance and the protection of children, there's going to have some trade-offs, and we just need to learn how to live with them. It's not easy. It's not an easy topic. Or just lock the kids in the basement and never let them go out. and suffer the consequences, as well as them not being able to grow with the actual world out there. Anyway, moving forward, so that would be those there. And then if I look at the main sessions, these are going to be the typical one, panels and whatnot. Let's see what they have. Since this is taking so long, I'm just going to be preemptively opening some of them. Launches in the war sessions. This kind of scares me because I don't know what I want to launch here. Lightning talks. Networking sessions. This typically is one of the reasons why you go to these events. Dynamic coalitions. I love me some buzzwords. National and regional initiatives, and then day zero. Let's see what's going on in day zero. All right, so these were main sessions. Global access, protecting internet infrastructure, time crisis and conflict. Was this the session to which I was invited? Let me see very quickly. Come on, load please. Elections, looking back, moving forward. How to continue to empower, I hate that word, empower. The IGF's role in internet governance. So they want to do as much as possible. So this would be sessions that have been, there's more sessions than this. Okay. Wait, they're not putting all the sessions on the in the website yet. Okay, guys, seriously, it's 3 weeks from now. People should be able to have a better idea about their agenda by the 24th of November, if everything is going to be starting on the 15th of December. Okay, so what do we have here? These are workshops. There's plenty of workshops. So they are calling regular sessions workshops this time or something? Human rights and inclusion. There's different topics, key topics for this, so the themes. Okay. Children in the metaverse. Okay. Cybersecurity and AI, balancing innovation and risks, unlocking sandboxes for people and the planet. I don't know what they mean by sandboxes. I'm curious. Big techs and journalism, disputes and regulatory models, intelligent machines and society, an open-ended conversation. I mean, yeah, they talk about things, and every now and then you have some interesting speakers, breaking the mold and looking into things. And for most of the part, they're just regurgitating the same thing all over and over again. And there's the IGF does this ridiculous thing, which is having to push for diversity and representation in every single one of the bloody sessions, every single one of them. You have to have a balance between all the stakeholders, a balance between all the regions. Like, dude, but you're not making the sessions as best as they could be. It's ridiculous. If there is one specific topic that is very important for Ghana, for instance, you would want to have every single one person in the panel to be from Ghana, so that they can discuss that particular thing. Yes, there can be one from civil society, another one from corporate, another one from government. Fine, but all from Ghana. Please, I don't want someone from Samoa there. It makes no sense to me. And all of these check boxes that you have to go for these sessions, I really find it ridiculous. It makes no sense. Okay, so you can have a look at the workshops. Way too many of them. Typically, you're not able to to go to all the ones that you want, because there's going to be way too many tracks happening at the same time, and you just they're going to be overlapping. So what are these? Launches and awards. Lenovo is launching something. Okay. AI bridges for the deaf and hard of hearing. Right. So many awards and launches. Okay. All of them about AI, actually. Well, almost. There's several of them. How is this? Wait a second. Why would they mention 2023 Kyoto? Okay, can't be bothered. So what else they have? Proposals for lightning talks, research ICT, Oxford, Uralo. Okay, isolation of the network, China Information Center. I just want to take sense. Okay, there's no semantic mention, right? IoT Netherlands, OnePal Foundation, Amazon. Navigating trust and safety in the cloud today and tomorrow. Okay. Paradigm. Council of Europe. Definitions on privacy and data. Some of the lightnings can be interesting. So one of the cool things about lightnings is they need to go on the topic. They need to concentrate because it's just 15 minutes. And so you can't really just you know, you need to be straight to the point. You can't be very flowery about it, which is cool. I actually like that. Just tell me what you want to tell. Let's see what is your proposal. Let's check what is that you want to. Oh my gosh. University of Oxford. Come on, guys. Anyway, networking sessions. Eurodig. So Eurodig is the European. What does it stand for? It's basically the IGF for Europe. But I want to see what is the European Dialogue on Internet Governance. There you go. Okay, European ISOC. Okay, and then AppNIC. What else? Freedom Online Coalition, Interledger Foundation. Also, digital financial inclusion. Keep an eye on whatever financial inclusion things come up. Again, it's never an issue. This is always a Moat and Bailey type of situation. It's never a problem for people to be able to be financially literate or even have bank accounts and so forth. The question is how much you're going to be manipulating them because they have bank accounts. Cash should not disappear. This is Dynamic Coalitions, Open Educational Resource Internet Rights and Principles Coalition, Dynamic Teens, Driven Public Access, Governance, Net Neutrality, Internet Standards, Security and Safety Coalition. Okay. Interplanetary Internet. It's funny how that's coming up as of late. DNS issues. Okay. A few of these might be also interesting. So for instance, let's have a look at so I don't know what blockchain assurance means. I don't know exactly why would you like to suffix that with assurance. But I want to check the internet standards and possibly the DNS issues. What is it so I need to check as well and NIS2 and IS2. taking forever. So close this for now. In collaborative sessions, tackling disinformation in electoral context, multilingual inclusion, and universal acceptance. So, for instance, why would electoral processes be at all a topic of conversation in internet governance? Unless you are using technology to do the electoral process, disinformation. Who determines what is disinformation? That to begin with. So if you want to look, so this is that's a backdoor for content moderation, basically. Because the information is moved through the internet, then you can put this into the internet governance thing. The problem with that argument is if anything that can be put under the internet will then fall into internet governance, and no one is seeing a problem there. The people who are involved in internet governance are not necessarily your representatives, not necessarily the people that you elected. So there has to be things that are left at the national level, don't touch them, and conversations can be had over there. And others that have much more of a global reach. And I don't think, for instance, that electoral processes or electoral contexts should be at all part of the conversation in internet governance. Not at all. So what do we have for day 0? First aid, tackling misinformation with information literacy. Okay. IPv6 MS collaboration, a path to digital inclusion in ME. I have no idea what they mean by that. First international treaty on AI and human rights. Okay. I mean, the way that they are putting it together, it is more than a day 0. It seems to be an actual just day, because day 0 typically was used for certain constituencies, certain groups needing to do pre-work before an event happens and so forth. And in here, it seems to be specific organizations just having their own sessions. Technical community safeguarding the internet you want. That's cool. This would be a session that I would attend. See what happens there. The future of the internet is built on open global standards. That is correct. Would also be another, and I hope that these two don't overlap. I will do another episode specifically on what I think is the future for standards. A lot of people are not liking it. Okay. What? I'm reading the thing is giving me a headache. All right. Dynamic correlation and DNS uses, description. Okay, so this started in Kyoto. Supporting policymakers in developing adequate measures for addressing online harms. Define online harms, please. I think this, Jesus, this is too much. Speakers. Yeah, I know some of these. Chris is going to be. Chris in the mag. Okay. Because Chris is also in the board of icon. I got my issues with how the AGF is. Okay. Data governance. Martin. Avery will be online moderating. Okay. All right. As you can see there, there's going to be a number of things. The whole event is very simple. It's a series of days, each of one of them with those sessions. You just go over there, attend as many as you can, and then try to make friends with people that will be helping you trying to get things done. Again, IGF is not the best place for... I have not observed that it is at all a good place for things to move into a specific direction. When it comes to internet governance, it still is a place that you want to be or that you want to participate. So I would definitely recommend you to register and have a look. Have a look at what it is if you've never been into an IGF before. As I was mentioning at the very beginning, I find it to be an issue that everything that has to do with the internet falls immediately into this internet governance environment. And then it becomes a very convenient catch-all that overcomes or that will allow to bypass local representation or local decisions from people in their countries because of this global thing. And we haven't gotten into it, but there was this thing called Wikit. And I'm gonna refrain from commenting much until I know a bit more about the whole story. I've been, people have been giving me, how to say, references, and I've been hearing stories of what happened, what transpired, and what was the actual intention there. It's the World Conference on International Telecommunications. And this was 2012. And it was bad. I'm gonna keep it at that. Certain objectives were mercifully not achieved, and if this would have gone the way certain people were planned, the internet would not be the way we know it nowadays. So there's a whole history about feuds between different organizations, and ICANN has been attempted to be acquired or absorbed a number of times, and hopefully that will not happen ever. It's hard to convey the different interests and pushes from all of these organizations, and all that you need to keep in mind is that you don't want to have a centralization of the governance of the internet in the hands of a handful of organizations. Some of which are not accountable to pretty much anybody. The UN is not accountable to anybody. They get money from their state members, and that's it. But do not know that the UN has ever been trialed for anything. And there's been scandals, and probably those scandals have been addressed, in international courts and so forth. But the point that I'm making is that the organization per se does not seem to have actual mechanisms of actual accountability. I haven't looked into what is the mechanism, for instance, for the leadership of the UN to be replaced. I believe it's only a factor of, or a function of, internal mechanisms from the UN, that no one can actually have a say on it. And so when you start looking into these global organizations that don't have necessarily an environment for everyone to participate, it is not unfair to raise questions and concerns as to where does this lead, and what would be the way to avoid turning the whole thing into an authoritarian environment. I think that is not an unfair question to ask. So let's leave it at that. Like I said, keep an eye on the Internet Governance Forum. Go to igfriyadh2024.sa. A bit of a difficult URL, I'll say that. And all just go to int.gov forum, another not so straightforward domain, and find IGF 2024, and then you have here the registration part. And you're going to have to need an Indico account to do the registration. Nothing you cannot overcome. Try to have a look at the agenda whenever it is that they issued, and check out some of the sessions. We will likely do a bit of a summary of all of this in the last episode of the season, and hopefully once we get everything more set up, we can get into a bit more nitty-gritty of all of these things. So if you have noticed, I'm dancing around some of the, I'm tiptoeing around some of the topics, because I don't want to go too hard on them at the moment. I rather ease the understanding of what of these organizations are doing, and how you can participate in some of their processes. But eventually we'll get into the meaty thing, the meaty parts. I really like this quote. There are no solutions, there are only trade-offs. Before I go, if anyone ever listens to this episode and would like to give us a hand with something, Tristan, if you're around there.
Yeah, what's up?
Yeah, so one thing that I was thinking that we could implement for the podcast, and I'm not 100% sure how easy would that be. Every time that we are throwing an abbreviation, IGF, IB, ITF, whatever, and dozens of abbreviations that they have, terminology in ICANN and so forth, it would actually be good to have the explanation, or the how do you say this when you unpack an acronym? So basically what the acronym letters are for.
You can probably use that on the studio on text, something like this at the bottom. But
yes. So that's the direct option, in which we should basically have to preload all of that. I was actually thinking we should think about having a bot for that.
I'm not sure how to do that with the Rumble Studio though.
Yeah, me neither. So it would probably going to be I don't know that they have APIs that to begin with. And there would be no way to overlap two different layers of screen sharing. So even if we manage to have it as a speaker, which was my initial idea, I don't know that speaker can put anything on top of Actually, maybe the speaker, what it can do is actually just throw it on the chat. But again, that would require that there's some API to do that. But just throwing the idea, just again, just running my brains, that I was thinking that something automated, because it's going to be otherwise a lot of preloaded terms, and for specific topics we might be able to figure out what would be the subset of acronyms that would apply on a specific episode. But then new acronyms come up and we don't get to respond to those with the same effectiveness. So I was just thinking about it the other day. That would be a cool way to provide explanations on the fly. Anyway, that's it. Anything on your end by any chance?
No, nothing here.
All right. So thank you so much, everyone. Thanks a lot, Tristan, for being there. We'll see you in 3 weeks on the 15th for the last episode of the season. Remember to support us and follow us on social media and spread the word about these episodes, or give us some feedback as well as to what would you like to for us to explore. What would you think you would want to get improved in the episodes? You can always reach out to us to contact@theiofoundation.org. Meanwhile, keep safe and take good care. Cheers.